You stand in front of your closet. The door is open. You can see everything you own pressed against everything else, and still you say out loud to no one, I have nothing to wear. It is not true. You have plenty. You have too much. But the truth is this, you cannot see what you have because it is buried under what you do not need, and the looking makes you tired before you have even started your day. This is not about the clothes. It is about the tiredness of a space that never feels finished. You fold, you straighten, you push things back, and 2 days later it looks the same again, like you never touched it at all. I learned something years ago that changed this, not a trick, a practice. One that comes from Japan, where I have lived most of my life, in a small house where every drawer and every shelf has to carry its weight, or it becomes a burden. My name is Keiko Tanaka. I studied the discipline of letting go at a temple in Kanazawa for over 20 years. I am 78 years old. I have lived in the same small house in Kanazawa for over 50 years. In my 50s, I began studying danshari at that temple, the discipline of refusing, discarding, and detaching from the hold that objects have on us. I practiced it in my own home until the tiredness left and the quiet came. What I am going to show you is not about throwing everything away. It is about changing how letting go feels. You have probably been told to take everything out. Pull it all from the closet, heap it on the bed, pile it on the floor. Look at the mountain you have made. Then decide, piece by piece, what stays. I tried this once, decades ago. I was in my 40s. I emptied an entire wardrobe onto my tatami floor. The pile covered half the room. I sat beside it and felt something close to panic. I put most of it back, not because I chose to keep it, because I ran out of energy and daylight. This is what the pile method does. It turns a quiet problem into a loud crisis. And in a small home, it is not a method at all. It is a mess you cannot escape until you surrender. The approach I learned later is nothing like this. You do not empty a space. You open it, look carefully, and remove only the things you are uncertain about. A single shelf, one small drawer. You touch only what gives you pause. Everything you are sure of stays where it is, undisturbed. That question is where the real practice begins. Katasuke. The word means two things at once. It means to tidy, to put something back in its place, and it means to put an end to something, to close a chapter, to say this part of my life is finished now, and I am ready for what comes next. The practice I learned is small. It does not ask you to set aside a weekend. It asks you to tidy as you move through your day, 5 to 10 minutes while waiting for tea to brew or the shower to warm up, not because you must, but because the rhythm of it becomes a kind of rest. Every morning, before I make tea, I open the drawer beside my sink. It holds dish towels, a few wooden spoons, a small knife I use for vegetables. I do not pull everything out. I look, I touch one or two things. I ask if they are still right, still useful, still making my kitchen feel lighter instead of crowded. Most mornings, nothing changes, but some mornings I find a towel that has worn thin, or a spoon I have not reached for in months. I set it aside, not with drama, not with guilt, just with the quiet understanding that its time with me is finished. This is katazuke, not the emptying of a closet, just the small, steady practice of closing chapters as you go, so that the chapters do not pile up and bury you. Danshari, 3 syllables, 3 stages, and none of them ask you to be harsh with yourself. The first is dan, refuse. This is the practice of stopping things before they arrive. You are in a shop. You see something small and pretty. You pause. You ask yourself whether your home is calling for this thing, or whether your hand is simply reaching out of habit. Then is the moment you recognize what you do not need before it crosses your threshold. The second is sha, discard, but the word carries more weight than the English suggests. Sha is releasing what no longer serves you and doing it with respect. You do not throw a thing away because it is worthless. You let it go because its work in your life is finished. The third is re. This is the deepest stage. Re is separating yourself from the hold that objects have on your mind, the guilt, the fear, the quiet voice that says, but what if I need it someday? Re asks you to notice that voice, to sit with it gently, and then to let the object go anyway. I kept a ceramic vase for 11 years, a gift from a colleague I had not spoken to in almost as long. It sat on a shelf in my hallway. I did not love it. I did not use it. But every time I thought of letting it go, I heard the guilt. She chose this for you. One morning I wrapped it in cloth, brought it to a second-hand shop, and walked home with my hands empty. The shelf looked bare for a day. By the second day it looked peaceful. Danshari is not a single afternoon of clearing out. It is a way of moving through your life with lighter hands. Many people are told to declutter slowly. A drawer this week, a closet next month. Work through your home room by room, little by little, until one day the whole house is clear. It sounds reasonable, and it keeps you stuck forever. The problem is that your belongings do not stay in one room. A book you keep in the bedroom migrates to the living room. A scarf you hung in the hall closet ends up draped over a chair in the kitchen. Your home is not divided into separate kingdoms. It is one space. When you tidy room by room, you never see the full volume of what you have. You look at the 5 sweaters in your bedroom closet and think, that is not so many, but there are 3 more in the coat closet by the door, 2 in a bin under the guest bed, 1 draped over the back of the sofa. You own 11 sweaters, but because you never gathered them all in one place, you never knew it. The method I learned and the one Marie Kondo teaches is different. You work by category, not by location. You gather every item of one type from every corner of your home, and you see them all together, not sweaters from the bedroom, sweaters, not books from the living room shelf, books, all of them. This is what changes the decision. When you see 5 books, you think, I am doing fine. When you see 230 books, you ask whether you are carrying more than you can read in the time you have left. The categories are these, in this order: clothes, books, papers, komono, miscellaneous household items, and last, sentimental objects, one category at a time, from beginning to end, until it is finished. Why this works is simple. When you complete one full category, you see the result immediately. Your closet no longer overflows. The change is visible, and the visibility keeps you from slipping back. If you tidy a drawer today and a shelf next week, you never feel the shift. I released half my clothes in a single afternoon. I gathered every blouse, every skirt, every pair of trousers from the bedroom, the hallway, the cupboard by the door. I touched each one, and by the time the sun set, I had 3 bags to give away, and a closet that felt like it could finally breathe. But the books took me months, and the letters from my late husband, the photographs, those I did not finish for nearly a year. Not because I was slow, because sentimental items are the hardest to release, and I was not ready yet. That is why the order matters. You do not begin with the hardest things. You begin with the easiest, and you build the muscle of letting go on things that do not cut so deep. There is a difference between looking at something and holding it. When you look, your mind answers. When you hold, your body answers, and your body is more honest than your mind has ever been. This is what the Spark Joy test asks of you. You do not glance at a sweater hanging in your closet and decide from a distance. You take it down. You hold it in both hands. You feel the weight of it against your palms, and you wait, not for a thought, for a feeling. Most people misunderstand what joy means here. They imagine excitement, but that is not what you are looking for. You are looking for quiet, rightness, ease, the feeling of something that belongs. I ask myself a simpler version. Does this object make my home feel lighter or heavier? Not useful or useless, lighter or heavier. You feel the difference in your chest before you can name it. The question most people ask is, might I use this someday? It is a question that almost always answers yes, because someday is infinite and your imagination is generous. The better question is this: do I want to carry this forward into the life I am living now? That question has a smaller answer, and the smaller answer is almost always the true one. There is a reason the categories fall in the order they do. Clothes, then books, then papers, then kimono, then sentimental items. It is a sequence built on one quiet truth about how human beings relate to their belongings. Clothes carry the least weight on your heart. A blouse you have not worn in 3 years does not whisper your mother's name when you touch it. They are easy to hold, easy to ask the question of, easy to set down. You are not just sorting fabric, you are teaching yourself what it feels like to open your hands and let something leave. Books are slightly harder. A book carries a version of yourself, the person who bought it, the person who meant to read it. Papers harder still because they hold obligations, identities, proof that you existed in certain ways at certain times. Kimono harder again because they hide in corners and drawers. And then, last, the sentimental things. The photographs, the letters, the objects someone you loved once held in their hands. You do not begin there. If I had started with my husband's letters, I would have kept every single one and called it love. But by the time I reached them, I had spent months practicing. I knew what quiet rightness felt like in my hands. I knew the difference between holding something because it belongs in my life and holding something because I am afraid of what happens when I set it down. I still kept most of those letters, but I kept them by choice, not by fear. And that difference is what the order gives you. Everything I have shown you so far is about releasing. But releasing without a system to hold what remains is like emptying a bucket that fills again from the same leak. There is a practice called 5S, 5 principles, each beginning with the same sound. Seiri, which means sort. Siton, set in order. Shizo, shine or clean. Seiketsu, standardize. Shitsuke, sustain. Seiri is the sorting you have already done. Seiton is giving everything that stayed a home, not a general area, a precise spot. My vegetable knife rests on the left side of the second drawer, blade facing the wall. My wooden spoon stands in a clay cup beside the stove. My dish towels fold in thirds and stack on the shelf above the sink, never more than 4. Each thing has one place. Shiso is cleaning that comes from seeing clearly. When every surface holds only what belongs there, you notice dust immediately. You notice a water ring on wood. Seiketsu is making this arrangement the standard, not a special effort for company. The way things are, every ordinary evening, I do not decide where the knife goes each night. I already decided years ago, and Shitsuke is simply continuing, sustaining, doing the small thing again tomorrow and the day after until it is no longer effort, until it is rest. Every night before I turn off the kitchen light, I return each thing to its place. It takes less than 2 minutes. The ritual has become invisible, the way breathing is invisible. When order requires no thought, it requires no energy. And when it requires no energy, it does not collapse the moment you are tired, or busy, or sad. This is how a home stays clear. Not through willpower, through repetition so gentle it disappears into the shape of your day. I should say one thing plainly. This practice keeps a clear home clear. It will not rescue a home that is in crisis from hoarding or grief so heavy that standing up feels like enough for one day, or a household where others undo your work as fast as you do it. If you are in one of those places, these methods are not where you start. You start with support from someone who understands what you are carrying. What I am sharing works best for the ordinary accumulation that builds quietly over years in a life that is otherwise fine. But there is one more thing that makes releasing possible, especially for those of us who were raised to believe that letting go and wasting are the same act. Matenai. It is a word that lives in my chest the way a prayer lives in the mouth of someone who learned it as a child. It means something close to what a waste, but deeper. It carries sorrow, the feeling that a thing still has life in it, and to discard it carelessly is to dishonor that life. This is why so many people cannot let go. Not because they love the object, because throwing it in a bag and leaving it on the curb feels like a small act of cruelty, and they are not wrong to feel that way. But Matenai does not ask you to keep everything. It asks you to let go with care, to find the right next home. A thing given to someone who will use it is not wasted, it is respected, it continues. My daughter's childhood books sat in a wooden crate in the hallway closet for nearly 30 years. Picture books with soft covers. A few chapter books she read over and over until the spines cracked. I could not put them in a donation bin. They smelled like her small hands. Then our neighbor's granddaughter turned 4. I saw her on the porch one afternoon, turning the pages of a magazine because she had nothing else. I brought the crate down that evening. I wiped each cover with a damp cloth. I carried them next door and set them on the step. The child reads them now. I see her through the window some mornings, cross-legged on the floor, turning pages the way my daughter once did. The books did not die. They moved. And the closet where they lived for 30 years holds only what I reach for now. You do not need to hold something forever to honor it. You only need to let it go into hands that will hold it next. And when the releasing is finished, when the drawers close easily and the shelves hold only what belongs, something happens to the house itself. It breathes. The air moves differently through a room that is not full. You notice it first in the morning, when the light comes through the window and lands on the floor instead of disappearing into the clutter that used to live there. The house feels wider than its walls, quieter than its silence. This is what 20 years of practice gave me, not an empty house, a house with room in it, room for tea, room for thought, room for the afternoon to pass without asking anything of me at all. I would like to know something from you. If you were to begin today, which category would you start with? Clothes, perhaps, or books, or that drawer in the kitchen you have not opened all the way in months. Tell me in the comments. I am curious what feels most ready to be released. Next time, I want to show you something I have learned in my garden, the practice of making peace with imperfection, with the cracked pot, the crooked branch, the path that moss has slowly taken for its own. It is called wabi-sabi, and it is the natural next step after today. But for now, here is what I ask you to do. Start with your clothes, gather them from every room, hold each one, ask whether it makes your home feel lighter or heavier, and let your hands answer before your mind does. The people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember, that enough is its own kind of wealth, that a quiet home is a rested mind, and that what you release makes more room than what you keep.